Hey everyone, welcome to the video. I'm going to see some of your main slate for today on DraftKings. We have a nice 10-game slate. At least I think it's 10 games. 10-game slate on deck for us. So a lot of places we can go, a lot of good values, a lot of good spend ups. So before we continue, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate that. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. That's just my name with 16 at the end. You can know how to spell that just by looking at my YouTube name. And also, I appreciate everyone that's supporting me on Patreon so far. I'm going to be doing some cool stuff on there, especially for NASCAR. Oh, and you get access to all the models. So just for an example, I scrolled all the way down, so it's just like the bottom feeder players, because I just don't want to give out the model for tomorrow. But so it's got everything you need on here. It's got what hand they are, what position, the player, the salary, what time the game starts, their stats versus their ISO versus righties, WOBA, righties, lefties, whatnot. Vegas, too early for me to put the Vegas totals in, but we got that as well. And then the matchup. So what pitcher they're going against, what hand they are, what they do versus what hand bat gives me the pitch weight. Then you get the projections and the projected value, and also the perk factor. So got all that on there, and I have it for the pitchers as well. So if you want access to that, it's on Patreon right here. It's got we got the UFC, PGA. NASCAR, which is right here. And with NASCAR, I am working on. So you guys used to I used to show you guys the model, but I'm working on a projection system for that. I kind of got that down, so I'm gonna try to get that into a ranking system. So it's gonna be available on Patreon, so you have access to the model. I'm gonna be doing an article on there as well, and then we showing my driver exposure for the GPP tournaments I enter. So we're going to have all that on there. So just something to think about. And then we also have the MLB model package and the $20 for all the sports, because we're going to be doing football once that comes around. And I'm not going to change the price for that, so you're getting an even better value there. You're going to save some money too. So it's just something to keep in mind, and I appreciate everyone that's done it so far. I just really appreciate that. It helps the channel out. Alright, so anyway, let's get into the cheat sheet. Enough about that stuff. Just had to get that out of the way. Alright, so for pitchers, I will say I do like Charlie Morton and I do like Jake Odorizzi, but I wanted to talk about these mid-range guys instead because they're a little bit more interesting. So let's talk about Adam Wainwright first of all. He's 7,500, so I really think he's going to be the chalk SP2 today. He's actually been pretty solid this year versus righties. He's, I think it's under 150 ISO, which is pretty respectable, especially for a guy like Wainwright. He's been giving up a ton of hard contact lately, the past couple years. But Miami is full of bad righties, and that's good for Wainwright because he struggles versus lefties, but we're only going to see a couple of them, like Granderson. So I do think Wainwright is viable in all formats. We used Mikolas against him, and we used Dakota Hudson, I think. Yeah, against Miami as well. So I do like Wainwright here. I do think he should have a decent game. There's not a ton of strikeout upside, but I do think he could get by and get us a nice, at least 15 points, hopefully. And then here's a new guy. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Zach Gallen. I don't know any Miami fans. You want to correct me, but he's 7,300 and he's a rookie call-up, so there's obvious risk with that. But he was great in AAA this season with a 1.77 ERA. 3.4 xFIP, which is a better indicator, I think, but a 0.71 whip and a 33% K rate. So he looks pretty good, and he's going to see a righty-heavy lineup in the Cardinals. So I think it's a decent spot. I would probably reserve it more for GPPs because it's a rookie call-up, but he does look good, and the matchup is fine too. And then Julio Urias at 8,000. With Hill getting hurt, this will make him a full-time starter tomorrow, from my understanding, because I think he was supposed to just come in and open, kind of. But then the pitcher they were going to use after Urias, he ended up having to pitch tonight. So I'm pretty sure he's just going to be the full-on-out starter. Obviously, his pitch count's not going to be too high as Leash, but I do think it's a decent spot versus San Francisco, who's just a really soft matchup versus left-handed pitching. So he's interesting to me, and it's a good pitcher's park. And he does have a lot of talent as well. And then a catcher, Yasmani Grandal, 4,800. He's better from the left side of the plate, and Roark really struggles with lefties, which doesn't profile well versus the Brew Crew, especially in this ballpark. And yeah, I think he's a fine play. And then Danny Jansen at 2,200. Let's just keep taking the free cookie DK is throwing us every single day with Jansen. He's just too cheap every single day. I know he's not the best hitter in the world, but I mean, he's respectable. I don't know why they hate him this much, but I'm not complaining. I'm just going to keep playing him. And I will say also like JT Realmuto. I don't have him listed, but I do like him a lot. And then Kevin Smith, I imagine he's going to be in the lineup versus a lefty. 3,700. He's been solid versus lefties with over a 400 WOBA this season. And I'm still not sure how I say his name. Is it Richard or is it Richard? Does anyone know? You can tell me. But he's been awful versus righties, and the Angels are destroying the Blue Jays this series, and I'm gonna expect that to happen again. I think they have the highest implied Vegas total, so I'm all about the Angels again. And then at first base, we have Rhys Hoskins at 4,600. He hits both lefties and righties well, and Vetty has a 10% K rate to righties, which is abysmal, but he has limited the power versus them, but I'm going to give the advantage to Rhys Hoskins here. And then Joey Votto for K, like the park, and Nelson has not been sharp to start the year so far, ever since he's got back from injury, and he does have good BVP versus Jimmy too. I think he's got 2 homers versus him. And then Albert Pujols a 4K. I know he's an old man, but just give me all the Angels versus Richard in this bullpen. And then second base, we have Robbie Cano at 3,400. He hasn't been on the cheat sheet in a while, but he was on it all the time earlier in the season. He was fine for us. I just love the price and where he hits in the order. And like I said, it's been a while, but he can fill in for Kip since he's on the early slate. We've been playing Kip a lot, and if you played him last night or tonight, whenever you're watching this, Kip went off. So it's always nice to see, especially for me as an Indians fan. But yeah, like the lefties versus Chatwood, and then Kiki and Taylor, pretty much the same person. Just always like this duo versus lefties. Although Chris Taylor at double donk tonight, so yeah, I guess he's a little more hot. Maybe they'll bump him to first in the order. And then Jeff McNeil, 4,500. Really the same reasons I like Cano, but he's just better than Cano, really. And then third base, Travis Shaw. Got a lot of good value options here. So Travis Shaw, really like the Brewers lefties versus Roark, and here's a good way to get some cheap exposure because everyone else is pretty expensive, like Moustakas, although I don't think Moustakas is playing. Christian Yelich, so. And then Justin Turner at 4K, another Dodger, and I never mind when facing a lefty, and he also has decent numbers versus Mad Bum in his career. And Hanser Alberto at 3,400. LeBlanc's going to come in after Scott, and I always like Alberto versus lefties. And LeBlanc has just not been good, especially versus righties. And then, so I do think the Orioles could be a sneakier stack. I always say sneaky snack. Sneakier stack. So guys like Nunez, Trey Mancini, Alberto. I'm sure there's someone I'm leaving off. Severino maybe. So I do think they're in a decent spot. And then shortstop, Jorge Polanco, 4,900. To no one's surprise, the Twins are near the top of my list tonight, going against Sparkman. And you guys know my love for the Twins. And then Trey Turner, 5,200. He's expensive, but Pivetta is either going to be on or he's going to be off. So I'm hoping he's off because I do have interest in the Nationals. And guys like Matt Adams, Juan Soto. I almost said Bryce Harper, but that's not true anymore. Trey Turner, and then and Adam Eaton. Yeah, so I don't mind them. And then Gene Segura. Oh, I will say Trey Turner does have 2 homers off of Pivetta as well in his career. And he's always got that amazing stolen base upside too. And then Gene Segura, 4,300, just like the Phillies versus Fetty, and then Nats bullpen. And then in the high-priced outfield, if you didn't have Mike Trout tonight, you could might as well just logged off of a DK. I ended up not playing him in cash, so that was a bad move for me. And I also went with Rich Hill. That didn't go well either. But yeah, 5,800. He's absolutely murdering the Blue Jays, and Richard can get righties out. I just do not see this ending well for him or the Blue Jays. So definitely love Mike Trout. He's going to be pretty much a lock for me. It's pretty easy to afford him, especially if you want to go. Because I don't think it's a necessity to spend up for Morton or Odorizzi. So that's why I kind of listed a lot of the mid-range guys, because I do think the bats are going to be more important on the slate, because I really don't want to prioritize Morton. I know it's a good matchup versus the A's, but still, I mean, they got some pop in their lineup. And then Odorizzi, I don't know, he just makes me nervous, because I don't really think he's worth 10,800. And then Frankie Montas is just the guy I don't like very much, so I'm probably not going to roster him, especially versus the Rays, who got some decent lefties in their lineup. So it's looking like a mid-range pitcher a day for me, so I want to spend up on these bats. And then Max Kepler, 5,300. He's the GOAT. I mean, he's been murdering the past couple of days, I believe. So he's hot, and Sparkman just isn't good and can't hang with these lefties from the Twins. So Kepler's the #1 play for me from the Twins. And Eddie Rosario, just I like him, just not as much as Kepler, but I still love Eddie Rosario. And then pretty much the same reasons. They're basically the same player to me. And then the mid-range outfield, you have Bryce Harper, 4,500. But he doesn't generate a lot of swings and misses and can really get beat up by the lefties. He does have a more decent strikeout rate to the lefties, but I believe it's only 18%, which is still very bad. So I do like Juan Soto, and especially it's versus his old team too. And then Juan Soto, 4,500. Love him in this mid 4K range, and he's been mid 4K range he's been in lately. I thought I forgot a word. But Pivetta has shown some life lately, but he's still got power, and I do like Soto's upside. And he will steal the occasional base too. And then Kyle Schwarber, 4,500. So from what I've seen, this Walker Lockett guy does not look very good, and he also has an insanely low K rate. I believe it's like, I looked earlier, I can't remember. I think it was like single-digit K rate, so he does not look that good. But so I don't mind Kyle Schwarber. Although I do think the wind's blowing in, but it's pretty light wind, so it shouldn't affect it too much. And then in the value outfield, Justin Upton at 4,200. Just love the Angels again. He started, he's returned white hot. And then Michael Brantley, 4,100. You guys know he's one of my favorite players. Green has a good K rate, but he does give up power, and this is way too cheap for a guy like Brantley. And then Yordan Alvarez is also in play. I just didn't list him for some reason. I don't know why, but I do like him at 4,200, I believe. And then Curtis Granderson, 3,200, just dirt cheap lefty versus Wainwright. And then if we go to some of the core plays, I have Rhys Hoskins at 4,600. Just like the spot he's in a lot. And then Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. Impactful weather. I retweet weather stuff as much as I can on Twitter, so it's just easier for me to do it that way. And then, although if it's like a big weather event, I will put something in there. So if you get access to this cheat sheet, I also put updates during the day. I usually have a nice long list of updates on here, so something else useful if you get access to this cheat sheet. And the top stacks for me are going to be the Angels, the Twins, the Phillies, and the Brewers, specifically the lefties. And I do think the Orioles could be a sneakier stack. Alright guys, that's all I have for the video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate that. I'll put the Patreon link in the description below. NASCAR and UFC coming out soon, which is always exciting. Always a fun time during the weekend. So anyway, I wish you guys the best of luck, and see you tomorrow.